Whatever you create with After Effects, be it an animation or a video, those projects are composed of different layers, different effects, and adjustments. And all of that takes place in your timeline, which is this long box that we see here. So in this lesson, we're going to see how the timeline works and also get into the different layers and how we can work with those layers to create our projects. Like many other Adobe programs, After Effects timeline is based on layers. So if you've worked with, let's say, Photoshop or Illustrator, layers should be pretty familiar to you. So we're just going to go over it once again. So it could refresh the memory and it could make more sense when we're looking at it in After Effects. So the things you'll need for this lesson is the project panel, the timeline, and the composition panel. If you're not seeing these three, just go to Window, then come down. Oh, we're already down. Because when you first come in, you would be all the way up here. So just click this, the triangle at the bottom and just go all the way down. Make sure composition, timeline, and project is checked. Or else whatever we say in this lesson is going to be really confusing because you don't have these panels. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is to bring in our footage. Those footage are going to be our layers, which you will then add some effects, maybe cut some, place them on top of each other, and just anything that we want. So in the project panel, in this empty box that we see here, I'm just going to double click in this empty space to import my files. You can see it brought my file explorer, and up here it says import file. So here's where you would choose whatever you need. I have two videos here that I'm going to drag in. You can also drag in a image, audio, or any other type of footage. And below here, you can also filter through the files that you have on your file explorer. So if you go here, you can see that you can choose and filter through the different files you have on your computer. And you can see the acceptable files. If your footage is not here, then you would know that it's not acceptable by Adobe Effects. But you can see we have a lot of options, from Photoshop files to JSON files, JavaScripts, and much more. But I'm just going to choose these two MP4 files. Just going to drag them. And then down here we have an option, import as. Right now it's on footage. But if we open this, and if I had maybe a Photoshop file, I would have an option as to import it as layers. So right now, because there isn't much data in these videos, as in it's just the footage, we only have the option for footage. Okay, let's hit import, and then we can bring these two videos onto our project panel on the left. So now that I have my two videos, you can see they are categorized as in placed in the right manner, where I could see their name, type, and all of the other information I need. I can also type and search for a certain video if I have too much in my project panel. So if I want to start a composition, I can either click and drag one of my videos onto my timeline, and then my composition will be named after the video. Or I'll just click on this and hit the backspace to delete, and also go into composition and delete it. Or I could hit new composition, and then I could name it. Let's name it video. We'll get into compositions in another lesson. So now I have a composition named video, and I can drag my footage inside, then start editing my footage. You can see that the video composition that we just named is, the type is a composition, and the two videos we imported are imported footage. So if you just, let me just delete my video composition. If I just click and drag my footage, the composition will be made automatically, but it will be named after my video. So now that I have my video, it's seen as a single layer and I can see my timeline, see how many seconds I'm in, grab the time indicator and just move through my footage, and you can see the duration up here. And your timeline is going to be as long as the duration of your video. So mine is only 27 seconds, but if I had a 10-minute video, it would be 10 minutes long. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys how the layers work. I'll drag my second video below it, and you can see that I'm not seeing my second video. And you can see in the viewfinder that it's different. That is because we're stacking layers on top. So we're stacking these videos on top of one another. And even if I'm on the second layer, it's not going to show up. This video is on top of this. So if I drag it and bring it below, you can see now this video is on top. And it's really small. That's just the frame size of the second video. You can see we have options to expand our footage, but obviously you'll have to deal with some pixelation and low quality. But for this lesson, I'm going to make it large just so we can see it better. So again, if I click and drag this below, you can see that the first video is now visible. So that's just how the layers work. It's really simple, not too complicated. I can turn off the visibility as well. You can see this eyeball on the left side of each of these videos. If I turn off the eyeball for the first video, we now see the second video. I'm gonna go back on this, and I'm just going to rename these real quick. I'll go in this guy, right click, rename. Let's call it floor. And this video, I'm gonna call it trees. So you can see it changed the name here. So if I turn the visibility off for trees, I'm seeing floor. But if I do it for floor, I'm still only seeing trees because trees is on the top. So no matter what you do here, if the footage above it is covering the screen, you will not see the stuff you're doing here. So yeah, you get to move these around as you please and put them in the right order. And you saw how we can easily scale them in or out. You can adjust the size as you like. I'm going to drag this in the corner, bring this back, and then hit play. You can see they both play at the same time. And you can also see that it's running really slow. That is because as we press it, you can see this green line. After Effects is rendering the clips. Now, when the program is rendering your clips, that means that it's going to create a preview clip for you to see all that you've done. So like a playback of your work. So imagine a rusty old door. When you try to move it, it's going to make some awful noises and it's not going to work properly. In order for the door to work like any other door, you need to add some mechanical oil in the creases so the door will operate smoothly. It's the same logic here. My raw videos are like that rusty door, and when I render my clips, it's like I'm adding that mechanical oil and it's going to play back a lot smoothly, and I don't have to wait for the little laggy parts and the slow motion that a clip that's not rendered would have. So you definitely want to wait for your clips to render before you get to see the playback and see what you've done so far. So when there's a green light on top of a small section in your timeline, that indicates that After Effects has created a preview for that specific amount only. So it added that oil, it created that playback for us to see what we have done. But when the rest of your timeline does not have any green light, that means that there is no preview for those sections. And if you just hit the spacebar, After Effects is going to go over those parts and create those previews for you. So all you have to do is just let it play once, and After Effects will figure it out on its own. So I'm just going to hit the space bar, and if you hit the space bar again, you're going to pause the timeline. And let's say I only want 4 seconds of my videos. I don't want the full 26 seconds. And by the way, because I dragged my tree video in first, the timeline is lengthened to 27 seconds. So if the rest of my footage is like, I don't know, longer, maybe 30 seconds, I'm not going to see the rest unless I expand it. So if I want only 4 seconds of my floor video, I will click on it, highlight the clip. I can cut my video and get rid of the rest. I will hit Ctrl-Shift-D or Command-Shift-D to cut it. Now you can see I have 2 floor layers, but this one is 4 seconds and this one is the rest of my video. So if I don't want the rest of the video, I'll just hit the backspace once. Now you can see I only have 4 seconds of my first video, and then it ends and disappears after that. If I want to bring it back, I'll just go on the end, click and drag it to however long I want it, maybe 10 seconds. And maybe I want 2 floor video layers. I'll just hit Control and D or Command D. D stands for duplicate. And now I have 2 videos of the same length. Again, if I wanted to crop and split the video, Ctrl-Shift-D or Command-Shift-D. So we're only adding a shift when we want to cut the video. And then if you want to delete them, maybe multiple at the same time, click your first video, Control or Command, and just click the rest of the videos that you want to delete, hit the backspace, and now both of them are gone at the same time. So that was really easy. That's how you can split videos, duplicate, and all that. And now maybe I want to copy maybe 2 seconds of my video, of the floor video, and put it at the end here. So I will first hit Command or Ctrl-Shift-D to cut my video. Now I have the 2-second clip here. And the reason why I know it's 2 seconds is because we have this current time indicator set on 2 seconds. So if I want 4 seconds, I will go here. And that's just how it works. And now on my floor layer that has 2 seconds, I'll hit Ctrl-C or Command-C. Then I'll go on my floor layer, bring the time indicator all the way to the end, and hit Ctrl-V. Or Command-V. It's going to go at the top, just bring it here. So now I have 2 seconds of my video in the beginning, the rest of my other video, and again it's pixelating because it's rendering as we go. Then I have 2 final seconds at the end of my timeline, and just like that I created a sequence. So far we learned how to trim clips, copy them, paste them, and then move them around on our timeline. And these are just some basics of video editing that you can do in After Effects. And to get rid of the clips, you can either hit Ctrl-Z to undo, or just hit backspace to delete the entire layer. So let's say this is my video, I want to export it, I'm finished with all the effects and the options that I want to do, but I only want 8 seconds of this entire sequence. I don't want the rest of them. And instead of cutting and duplicating and all of that, there is an easier way to only get 8 seconds of the sequence that you have created, so you don't have to do all the other things. So this was the scale to, get in between the seconds. You can see instead of seconds, we now have frames. We'll get into frames later. If I expand it, we're back to seconds. So right now it's going up by 2. You can see 2, 4, 6, 8. If I make this smaller, we now see all of the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's bring this back up. Below this is the work area end, which means that if I only want 6 seconds of my entire project, I can easily just click and drag this to 6 seconds. So whatever comes after this indicator is not going to be exported with the footage that I have cornered here. So this just says that how long of your work is visible, and I can always just drag the end and make it longer or shorter. And again, if it's still 18 seconds, the rest of the video will not be exported. So make sure, if you want the whole thing to be there, that this is set to the end of your seconds, which in my case, it's 27 seconds. All right, and another thing that we are going to talk about is the audio. You can see here we have some audio. The first floor video doesn't have any audio, so that's why there's no volume icon, but the second one does. And if I wanted to mute it, I can simply remove this guy. And now there will not be any audio. Click it back, and now it has. And we have some other options. We have solo. We'll get into these later. Like I said, I'm not going to go over each single one. That will only confuse you guys. But the basics of the layers are the visibility and the lock. So if I lock my floor layer, I cannot move it. You can see that if I go on my floor, I cannot highlight it anymore. So that is locked into place. And the reason why we have the lock in the first place is because when you're working with a lot of footage and a lot of effects, sometimes you accidentally move your elements and you will not realize it until the end, and that can be really annoying. So if you want one footage or one shape, one text, anything to be in one place and not move throughout your working process, you would lock it in place. And you can easily unlock it. Now if I go on floor, I have highlight the layer and I can move it around like I was able to before. Let's put it here. And we also have the zoom in option. So if I make this big, it's the same thing as up here. So these two essentially do the same thing, but with this guy you have more control. So if I zoom out, again it's back to the second. If I zoom in, I'm back to the frames. And what frames mean is that I'll just give a quick explanation. Right now, my cursor, I'm going to put it on 2 seconds and I'm going to zoom in. Now, because we created this project with 24 frames per second, that means that I need 24 frames of footage before it can reach a full second. So down here you can see it says 23 and then 2 seconds. So these frames are what makes the seconds of a video or any animation. We'll talk about these later, but these two are basically for you to zoom in and out on your layers. And with the layers, like we said, we can always add effects and drag it onto each of the footage that we like. I'm going to go on my floor footage and I'm going to see what I could add. Let's go in like color correction and put like an auto color, click and drag and then put it onto the floor. You can see the color changed. I'll hit Control Z. This was the before. This is the after. And now you can see in my effects control, it says floor here. I have the options to make adjustments. So I could change the black clip, work with the temperature and all of that. So if you didn't like how your footage looks, you can always add a color correction preset like we did just now, and then work with the different parts to make it more to your liking. And yeah, so basically the timeline will have the different videos, the music, if you choose to have one, all over here. And if I wanted to make more adjustments that are not in the Effects and Presets panel, I can right click on the layer and we have some other options. For example, we can do go in time and make the clip in reverse, maybe make it slow motion, freeze a frame, enable time mapping, which we'll get into later. So you can even like mask it out and do other things. If there's something you want to do specific to this layer, and if it's not here, you will find more options here, which is right now in Effects. You can see that we have these similar options that we have here. So you don't necessarily need this panel, but it's just easier to click and drag onto your layers. Close that. And right now, you saw that we added this auto color to my floor layer. Now we have this FX icon on my floor layer. What that means is that I have now added an effect to this layer. But you can see the trees layer doesn't have any effects because we didn't drag anything on top of it. So if I wanted to see my footage without the effects, I could hit the FX and now it's gone. Click it again, it's back. I'm going to add the same effects on the trees and now you see both of them have the effects. Turn them off and they're gone. And then here we have some options for quality and sampling, which we're going to leave as it is for this lesson. And then next to that, we have a 3D option, which would be something that you would use if you're creating a animation from scratch. For videos like this where it's 2-dimension, you wouldn't really need a 3D option for it, so we're not going to get into that right now. We have an option for adjustment layers, which are basically just layers that are empty where you can add certain effects. We will get into those later as well, but for now, you guys know how to work with layers in After Effects and also how to work with a timeline and move things around, maybe add a certain effect, scale them in or out, and just some basic video editing stuff that you should know before you get started in After Effects. And notice how next to each layer there's this arrow. If we click on this to expand it, we have two options. Usually you will not have the effects option, but because we added one, we can see it here. If I open this as well, we see that our effect is indeed the auto color. You can reset it if you want, but we didn't really do anything. And you can even open this and get the same options that you would get up here. We have some compositioning options, which you can change the opacity of the effects. And we have this stopwatch next to it. We'll get into those later. Those are called keyframes. Maybe you've heard of it. And what this does is basically allows me to kind of fade in this effect at any time that I want. So for example, at 2 seconds, my effect opacity is at 100, but then at 4, I will reduce it to maybe 50%. So as my video goes on, the effects fades away to 50%. We'll get into that later. And then we have the transform option. I'll just click on the effect to close it. If you open transform, we're seeing some things that are essentially the building blocks of all animations. We have anchor points, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Now these are really important. They will have their own lessons. But for now, I'm just showing anything that's related to the layers, so you know where each of the effects are and where to reach them throughout the course. I'm gonna close that. And that was how the layers work and also how the timeline works. If you want, you can easily go, after you've edited, you will go in File, and then export. So it's that easy. If you want to do a quick video editing, this is how you would import, work with the layers, and then export. So this was it for this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one.